On this week's episode of the Maz Hakim podcast, we have relationship coach and psychologist Sadia Khan. Welcome to Virgin Radio Dubai.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for coming.
Anytime.
I want to know a little bit about your background, Sadia.
Oh, I was literally just telling you before we started.
Yes.
I used to be a psychology teacher. I used to teach psychology in colleges, and so I kind of just went to school, studied psychology. I kind of then went into teaching because I wanted to work with children. And as I was working with children, I was teaching them more and more things. I just think, I wish adults knew about this. I wish adults would know this. I wish everybody was taught psychology. And so I was just kind of looking into doing more coaching and doing therapy. So I started my journey towards psychotherapy, and I started qualifying as a psychotherapist, but I was still teaching. And the more I was teaching, the more essential I found the information. So I was thinking, let me just post some of this online. Maybe people need to know this. Maybe people don't realize why they're having this issue or that issue. And I started posting a little bit online, and then praise be to God, it just kind of like, it took off from there. And so now we're here. Now we're on Virgin Radio.
Yeah. And now you're here on Virgin Radio.
I don't know how I got here, but thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. I mean, I've seen a lot of your things, and I think it's really important to talk about relationships, especially femininity, which you talk about a lot. Can you explain the term femininity and why you believe it's so crucial?
Do you know what? I always didn't really understand the need to discuss femininity. I thought it was just innate in us. But as I've gotten older and as I've seen society change, I realized that femininity is becoming a forgotten concept, especially when I was teaching students. I remember when I first started teaching students, they were very feminine. And then over the course of a few years, they got more and more they started to see a femininity as a defect. They started to see being nurturing, kind, caring, considerate, compassionate, all these beautiful traits of femininity. They started to see that as a weakness. And I was wondering where it was coming from. And, you know, I think a lot of it is to do with the education system. It kind of makes, especially with English teaching, they teach you a lot about female empowerment. Yes. But in the process of female empowerment, they see it as rejection of femininity and rejection of nurture and rejection of gender roles. But I find that gender roles are what makes us beautiful. It makes us essential. If I do everything a man does, he no longer needs me and I no longer need him. And life is about connections and codependency to some extent. And we need each other. Men, women, children, everyone. We all need each other. This is the measure of happiness. So if we reject femininity, we reject the one trait that makes us special as a woman.
And how do we become more feminine? Because I find sometimes, especially in Dubai, your masculine energy comes out.
Absolutely.
You need to have this fire and this drive. How do you have, like, say, 3 tips on how we can be more feminine?
I would say the first one is receiving. I know lots of people think that, you know, being feminine is giving and doing lots for people. Absolutely. But one of the masculine traits I know I've had over the years is I don't accept help from anyone. I don't ask for help from anyone. I think it's bad to say, like, can I borrow this, or can you help me with this? I always just don't ask for anything. But the reality is, part of being feminine is receiving. If somebody wants to give, if somebody wants to love you, if someone wants to be there for you, let them in. And part of what's happening, especially when you start working more and you become more independent, is you feel like, no, I don't need it. I'll be fine. I'll do it. No, I don't want to be a bother. Receive. You deserve it. You deserve somebody looking after you, because when we reject people looking after us, we then become in survival mode. Yes. And we get tired. So then we get like rejecting of all the other things that like make us feminine. So I think the first step is always to receive. Second one is nurture is a great one. You know, nurturing, what I would say nurture is predicting people's needs before they say it and providing an answer for it. So it could even be your mum's tired and be like, do you want me to give you a massage, mum? Or do you need a coffee, mum? Or with your dad or with your partner. I know people feel like it's a bit negative when you do it with your partner, but I do think it's what makes us so unique to men, is that we can predict people's needs without them saying it. They don't have to tell us. We know you're tired. We know you might be hungry. We know that our baby's going to cry in 5 minutes. So predicting people's needs before they saying it and reacting to it is a really feminine trait. I would say that's a really feminine trait. And the final thing I would say is having boundaries. I would say trying to become like a man and trying to allow, becoming as masculine as possible, is going to remove your femininity. So have boundaries with yourself. Make sure that you are remaining in touch with your true needs rather than being in survival mode and strong, independent. What are your true needs? Most women's true needs are to be loved and to love.
Yeah.
And staying close to that.
And it's quite a simple concept, but we complicate it, right?
Yeah.
What common mistakes do you think some women make when it comes to relationships?
I think the biggest mistake, and I know I'm guilty of this as well, is we don't communicate our needs and we expect them to predict it. So what I mean by this is, say for example, we want to see somebody more often. We will say, I'm not going to ask him, I'm not going to say it because he should just know. If he wanted to, he would. But the reality is, when we don't communicate our needs, we teach people the wrong way to love us. If you're late every time you pick me up and I don't say anything in that process because I don't want to look needy or I don't want to look clingy or anything like that, I'm teaching you it's okay to do that. Or if a guy is going more forward than you would like physically, this might be a little bit controversial, but I do think the men in Dubai don't desire the more wholesome, looking for a relationship kind of woman. They desire that transient woman who's here for a lifestyle and then will leave when she's got it. The woman that's actually looking to start a family and start a connection and stay here and build a home, there is very few options for that woman. But the woman who's here on holiday, who wants a good party and wants to go on a boat and wants a Cartier ring, she's in for a treat. And so what happens is the women that actually are building something here, have a career here, have a friendship network here, they will find it really difficult. But a girl that's on holiday, she'll find it the easiest place in the world to find love.
So how do partner here in Dubai?
This might be a little bit controversial, but I do think the men in Dubai don't desire the more wholesome, looking for a relationship kind of woman. They desire that transient woman who's here for a lifestyle and then will leave when she's got it. The woman that's actually looking to start a family and start a connection and stay here and build a home, there is very few options for that woman. But the woman who's here on holiday, who wants a good party and wants to go on a boat and wants a Cartier ring, she's in for a treat. And so what happens is the women that actually are building something here, have a career here, have a friendship network here, they will find it really difficult. But a girl that's on holiday, she'll find it the easiest place in the world to find love.
So how do we change that? I mean, is that something that I guess men have innately here, or I mean, how do we change it?
I think any environment which is catering to our pleasure makes people pleasure seekers. Yeah, because I know Dubai is the best city in the world, but I like pleasure. So I love the fact that I can walk around and there's beautiful lights everywhere, there's fountain shows, there's fireworks, it's pleasure everywhere you go. It's just stimulation. And when an environment is so stimulated, it's very difficult to accept monotony. It's very difficult to look for a wife where it will be just sitting at home, you know, playing with the kids and, you know, going to see the in-laws. That starts to become a distant dream. Whereas going out every night, going here, seeing this, shows, this, that and the other, that becomes the norm. So unfortunately, we are replacing peace with pleasure in Dubai because it's so great. And the downside of that is people find it hard to be bored.
So what's your advice to women who are struggling to find a healthy relationship here?
I would say remain true to your true needs and your true desires and your true outcomes. The reality is, if what you want in life is causing you to have less options, if you compromise what you want, you're only going to set yourself up for divorce anyway. If you think, I can't find anyone, let me just try this different lifestyle, or let me just try this different type of guy, you're just prolonging the divorce and loneliness. It's still going to catch up with you. But if you remain loyal to your true and core needs and values, it might take longer to find it, but once you find it, it will be more sustainable. So I would say try and I know it's difficult in this day and age. It's so difficult. You feel lonely, you feel tired, you feel like everybody else has found someone. You see women of very different kind of backgrounds getting all they want in life, and you start to lose motivation. But in my language, there's an expression that when something comes quick, it goes quick. So it's unfortunate. It's a longer road, but the outcome will be better for you, inshallah.
Do you think women need to be a bit more transparent at the beginning of a relationship, or should you wait when you begin a relationship? Should you be upfront with what you want?
I would say so. And the reason I say so is because women think that let me just play it cool and eventually he'll change his mind and he'll want to get married and have kids. But what he's thinking is, this girl's cool, she doesn't want a relationship, let me keep my eyes open to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're training men to see you as a option rather than a outcome. Whereas if you communicate your needs, absolutely it will push away a lot of men, but it will push away the ones that had the wrong intentions anyway.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean you say, oh, I want to get married, I want to do this, that, and the other, but it's simple things like you having boundaries simply means when you don't like something, you simply communicate it. You don't punish the person for not listening to you, but you communicate it. Oh, we haven't spoken all day. I start to miss you. Can you just let me know you got home okay? Little things like that. Whereas if you just say, oh, he hasn't called me in 2 days, so I'm not going to reply to him, but then when he does, I'm going to go and see him straight away. He's going to learn that that's what you accept. So it's about communicating your standards, not necessarily your future outcomes, but at least your standards. And if you don't like something, you let them know, but you don't punish them for it. You don't get angry, you let them know. And if they don't want to abide by your boundaries, no worries. It's a bit like when you go to a restaurant and you let them know your allergies. You're not going to shout at them if they, if they don't have the food you like. You're just going to go to someone else. Same thing with men. You communicate your allergies, what you don't like, what you can't accept. If they are okay with that, perfect. You got a great match. If they're not okay, if you sit there, you're just going to be poisoned. So just go somewhere else. Go to another restaurant. Go to another situation. But you have to let them know your boundaries.
And what about women who get a taste of a toxic relationship or a bad relationship and they keep going back to it?
That would be a trauma bond. What happens with a toxic relationship is they give you love in doses. So they'll give you a bit of love, then followed by a lot of trauma, then love, then trauma. And what happens is we get addicted to that love. We see potential. We're like, oh, but it used to be so good. Or do you remember when he used to do that to me? How can I let him go? So they hold on to the good and forget the trauma in between, and they end up staying with that person. But the reality is, if you have to think about when it was good, it's not good. Yeah, because a true healthy relationship, there is no, oh, but I know what he used to be, I know what we could be. It is just, we're cool, we're calm. It's not this like fireworks all day, every day, but there's that steady peace, rather than, I remember when we used to have it good, or I remember when he was so kind. There's no holding on to memories. It's more what is going on day in, day out is more peaceful.
And if a woman right now is listening and she's going through a divorce or a breakup, how can she get over it, and what's your message to that woman?
My message would be, have a very clear vision of where you see yourself in a couple of years. And that might be married, kids, happy life. Now ask yourself, if you were to freeze time and freeze this partner, would he fit that vision? If the answer is yes, he'd be perfect, then fight for it. But if the answer is, oh no, that would be traumatic if we had kids in this environment, then you are holding on to an imaginary imagination. Well, your true vision deserves somebody else, and you to be somebody else, because we can become very toxic in a toxic relationship. So the best thing to do is remember your vision. And when you remember your vision, you start to realize, would this person fit that vision? And if the answer is no, simply be happy for them. Be happy for them. Be like, you don't fit my vision. You're not ideal for me, but I wish so you would meet someone who would fit yours, but you don't fit mine. And I wish you the best, but I have to find mine because I deserve it.
And what about long distance relationships? Do they work?
I think they are tricky in this day and age, unfortunately. It takes a tremendous amount of trust, and it takes a tremendous amount of stability created before you went long distance. So I think usually they work when there's an element of, oh, we can date other people, but when we get together, we're together. And I don't know how healthy that is, but I would say, though we've got so many channels of communication to keep relationships alive long distance, those same channels can be applied to other people in this day and age. And that's what's difficult. And people crave intimacy, whether it's emotional, physical, intellectual, whatever it is, they crave intimacy. And when they can't access their partner, sometimes they can, use those means in the wrong way. So it just depends, but I would say it's slightly difficult.
And creating imaginary situations in our head.
Well, women are amazing at that. If he hasn't replied, he's definitely, with another woman. There's no alternative. He can never just be sleeping. It's always, and I would say if you're naturally insecure, which many of us are, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Don't torture yourself with a long distance relationship, because it can torture you.
And what about social media? With relationships, has it complicated the way we look at relationships, and how can we utilize it as a tool in a positive way?
It could be really positive when it's used in proportion, but I think what's happening, especially if you've got a large following, I can speak on behalf of large following and small followings. Large followings, what it does is it creates an element of narcissism. What happens is you start to see human beings as disposable because there are so many alternatives available to you. You think, I just post a picture, somebody will message me. I'm hungry, somebody will take me for dinner. It takes nothing. So large followings create an element of narcissism, and it makes people start to see relationships as disposable. Small followings is less problematic, but then the reality is, even with small followings, you'll see partners liking pictures, and it causes a lot of trauma. I know women who've come to me and are thinking about surgery simply because their partner keeps liking pictures of girls with it. So it causes a lot of trauma. I think, unfortunately, what social media does is it makes you think you've got so many options, but there are not actually that many options out there. And the reality is we're more connected to people we're similar to. But social media means that you can contact somebody in LA, you can contact somebody in Ghana, and we might be similar on social media, but our norms and values will be very different. So I think it gives an illusion of options, but I don't know how healthy it is. But I have heard some great stories. I've had so many people meet someone really great from social media. I'm always on the worst case scenario side because of what I do for a living. But I do think if you use it in a healthy way, and you meet somebody who's I think using people's social media behavior as a judge of character is actually a good way to look at it. If you meet somebody whose social media's behavior is bothering you, and he's not willing to compromise on that, at least this is a difficult partner. But if you meet somebody whose social media behavior is so lovely, you're like, oh, maybe we could do something about this, because he's actually behaving really well, and I can see it. It's visceral. His behavior is great. So same thing, boys and girls. I think you can get an insight into what kind of person they are. So it can be used really well.
And you mentioned the client of yours who was considering surgery because they're clients. Wow.
Yeah.
So is liking other women's pictures or sending fire emojis, is that a cause for concern? Is it on the path to cheating if they're not already?
I don't think it's necessarily on the path to cheating, but it depends how your partner reacts to it. Now, if your partner doesn't mind, do whatever is in the confines of your relationship. But if your partner has expressed it hurts them, and you're choosing to validate other women than validate your partner's feelings, then that's a cause for concern. Because what that signals is your partner would rather hold on to their independence and hold on to their autonomy and hold on to validating other women over and above what makes their relationship more smooth. And it doesn't mean you get controlled by your partner and they control you in every aspect. But if this is one area that's causing her some damage, as a partner, you should be like, oh my God, of course I'll stop. Like, I don't want to make you feel insecure. But if you have a partner that says, grow up, you're being insecure, you're being childish, it's not that deep. Well, if it's not that deep, why are you doing it? Yeah. So it really depends on the dynamics. But I would say that person who rejects somebody's plea for help is not really ready for a relationship.
And what about people who post their fairy tale love stories online all the time? Is it healthy, or should you keep that a bit more private?
I think when people have been hurt a lot in their life, either in their childhood or upbringing, what happens when they finally find love is they're overexcited. So when
Look at me.
And so when I see people who are overposting, it makes me wonder, what pain did you go to get here? Why you're super excited about being in love, which is great. I mean, as you should be. But this level of kind of showing suggests that there was a lot of pain going into it. Now, people with problematic past tend to have problematic futures. So the people that post the most, you'll see that they end up breaking up. But it's not because they posted. It's usually because it took them a lot of trauma to find love. They were really excited when they got love. They wanted to post every second of it, but they didn't work on the
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 relationship.
trauma in the relationship. And so the cycle repeats and they find themselves in that pain again. So the reason I say it's a red flag is not because there's anything wrong with being in love and being excited, but a level of, it's a bit like when somebody starts posting their Lamborghinis and nice cars. Chances are they didn't grow up with money. There's nothing wrong with it, nothing wrong with it. But when you grew up with money, you just knew that was your dad's car. Like, there's nothing to, so when it's nothing exciting, you don't really post as much. Same thing happens with relationships. When you've had a stable childhood, when you've had stable levels of love throughout your life, as excited as you are, you're not posting all day, every day. So those stable people tend to last a bit longer. The ones that want to let everybody know everything, it's probably some level of trauma and they're overexcited. And so I can understand it, but I don't think it's healthy.
And what are some red flags we should be looking out for when we look at someone's social media, for example?
I would say if he's got like 200 followers but is following like 5,000 women, it's so cringe.
It's so cringe.
It's so cringe. And the reason I say, even with girls, I would say even there's girls out there that will be following 90,000 like influencers.
Yes.
And I would say both for men and women, when they're following that much, just imagine what their feed must look like. If they're following influencers and influencers and influencers, they're basically saying, influence me. Influence me, not teach me. If they're following pages where they're learning something, it's different. But what their social media following shows what they want to consume. If it's fashion, if it's body, if it's vacuous, they want to consume something more shallow. Whereas if it's something business related, work related, workout related, etc., then you know that they want to consume the right information. So I think it does tell us a lot. It tells us where their mind is and what they want to consume. So pay attention to it.
Can women have it all? A career, a family, a successful relationship, or maybe a business? Can we have it all? Or, as you mentioned earlier, do we need to be a bit more feminine and balanced?
I would say everything in life that you want has a sacrifice associated. So if you want a great body, you have to sacrifice food, certain types of food. If you want a great career, sometimes it sacrifices time with your friends and family. So having everything is a little bit harder because it takes some sacrifice. So having a really great career might mean sacrificing time with your kids. Having, being a stay-at-home mom might mean sacrificing your potential. You could be a really great, you could have a really great business and you're stuck at home with the kids. Not that it's bad, but it involves a sacrifice. So having a relationship also means a sacrifice because you have to think about both people's needs. I would say to measure what you want in life, think about the sacrifice it takes. And if you're willing to sacrifice it, do it. If you want to be a millionaire, that means sacrificing time and energy with your friends and family. Are you willing to sacrifice it? Yeah, perfect. If you want a career, but it means sacrificing time with your kids, as long as the sacrifice is something you can handle and you can deal with, you will feel like you've had it all. But if you get it all on paper, but you didn't realize what the sacrifices were, you're going to get to the top and feel very empty. So bear in mind the sacrifices when you're looking for what you want in life.
And if there's a woman listening now and she's looking for a relationship, what are some of the qualities she should be looking for in a man?
I think it really just depends on her. I think the reality is, have a look at things that make you deeply insecure and difficult to be with. And if you are aware of those things, then you need a partner that will soothe your anxieties rather than ignite them. Now, if you know you're naturally quite clingy and you know you need a lot of time and affection with your partner, don't choose a super busy, high-flying man because it will bring out the worst in you and the relationship won't last. But if you are very autonomous and very independent and very secure, then by all means choose a man who has similar qualities. But really bear in mind what part of you makes relationships hard, and then try and find a man that will navigate those experiences rather than ignite them, rather than make it so much worse for you. And that is actually the key, unfortunately. It's about looking internally and finding the balance.
And what's your advice on how a woman should avoid being clingy, if there's even a way?
Well, here's the thing. Being clingy is very normal. I'm clingy as hell. Are you clingy?
I can be.
I'm
yes,
crazy clingy. I could live in your skin. It's no bother to me. There's no bother to me at all. I'm super clingy. But the reality is, here's how to navigate clingy people. When you have a clingy partner,
Yeah.
if you just tell your partner, oh, I'm quite clingy, if he gives clingy people, the antidote is consistency. If you have a clingy partner, but they hear from you maybe morning, lunch, and night, what happens then is when you give them reassurance and you give them stability, they start to let go. They let go. They let you go. So if you hear from your partner in the morning, you're like, okay, bye, have a great day. You don't need to check in on them again for a while. But what happens to clingy people is when they go prolonged periods of time without hearing from their partner, then they get intense, then they get clingy. So clinginess is not a state, it's a reaction caused by absence. So if your partner taps in every now and then and just checks in, you'll be so surprised how much the clinginess will just go. People think if I keep tapping in, she's going to get worse, but actually she calms down. But as long as she can rely on you to check in on her on a daily basis, she will become less clingy. So that's the cure, really. You need a partner who understands that, stabilizes it, and then you'll become more independent.
And, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. She's talking to this guy, and he said to her, I'm not looking for a relationship. And she was considering whether she should still go on the date or not. Can you change a man's mind, or is he just saying that to protect himself?
I'm sure I don't want to say no, you can never, because, you know, people change. It's not the, you know, I don't want to say one size fits all. But the reality is, if he's told you that, you have to accept it rather than try and change it.
Okay.
We need to practice dating with acceptance rather than challenge. Don't see it as, oh, but maybe I can change. He's thinking maybe I can change her. Maybe she won't want a relationship.
Right.
So just like you meet a man and you say, I want a relationship, he says, I'm not ready for a relationship, and you're thinking, maybe I can change him. He's thinking, maybe I can change her. Maybe she'll never want a relationship. Maybe she'll be open to me being polyamorous. Maybe.
Yeah.
So just like how you don't think you'll change your mindset, he doesn't think he will. And everybody deserves acceptance. So if he doesn't want a relationship, accept that about him. Don't judge him for it.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's like having an allergy in a restaurant. Once you've said your allergies, if everything contains nuts, you can't get mad at them for that. You let them know, but then you move on. And if they say, I can make something that doesn't have nuts for you, but you can stay. Similarly, if the person says they can meet your needs, stay. But if the person doesn't say that, then accept.
Sadia, where can we follow you online? How can people get in touch with you? This has been so insightful.
Oh, thank you so much. I felt like I was rushing it. We were talking, do you know what? We're both fasting, so we're like, let's talk blah, 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 and then maybe we'll be able to drink later. But yes, you can find me at Sadia Psychology on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. I do one-to-ones, and I will be launching a course soon, and so you can find more of me pretty much everywhere. TikTok is really my home at the moment.
Wow.
So praise be to God.
Well, it's been so insightful. Thank you so much for coming in to
Thank
Virgin.
you for such wonderful questions. I've never been asked any of those questions
really?
before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it's literally just been a girly chat.
Yeah, I know. We could have had a coffee and done this.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much
you.
for your time and energy. I really appreciate it.